Hi, welcome to the Karura Men's Ministry. Here, what we try to do is to help men to thrive in the different areas of their lives. We're trying to get men to be better husbands, to be better fathers, to be better men in their workplaces and in the societies where they are. And so we've been doing this monthly meetings every second Saturday of the month, where we meet as men and we share ideas, we have discussions. We'll play soccer sometimes, we'll go have fun, we'll eat meat. And so we're just trying to build a community of men where we are guided by God and just following Christ together. And so we want to welcome you, each and every one of you, to the year 2025, as we continue to build men and to just raise men that will be leaders in the different areas of their lives.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, it's good to see all of you. First of all, I want to thank the officials of the Men's Fellowship for their faithfulness through the years, just ensuring that we are well organized, that we are served, that we are together, and that we are encouraged as we go through the year. And we want to really thank God for your faithfulness. I know they meet early in the morning. I think is it every other week or so, or at least once a month. I know they do that, and we really thank God that you're able to stand in the gap for us, and we want to say thank you very much for that. Also want to really thank all of you for your commitment, and you've come in good time, you've come early, and I was actually surprised to see that some of you have crossed 3 counties to be here. This is really nice. Just thank you so much for that kind of commitment to this particular team. So this morning we don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to share very few things in terms of how I'm going to just take us through this session. Last year in January we met at a time like this, so there were some things we put together from that meeting. So what I did is I summarized that. I gave it to the men's committee just to look at it as well, just to see some of the issues you had raised that you were praying about or looking forward to. And so I put that together and just reflecting on it and seeing how the Lord is working with all of us. And then, so I'll just go through that. Then there's one scripture passage that I will look at. And then after that, we'll go into small groups. We're going to small, about 4 groups. So what will happen is we'll be in those 4 groups. You'll choose one of you to be a leader. And there will be certain things that we shall do in those groups. One of our priority areas as a church is that we get to be community, we get to know one another. You know, the style you're sitting in right now is very British. You know, the British, they have this very narrow, long church. So what happens is the priest stands up on mbele, alafu anaongea, alafu anaenda. Na nyinyi, you've been seeing each other's backs. And then you file out, and as you file out, you see each other's backs. Tunaelewana? So like, I'll never see Eric's face, because like Pastor Wallace will never see Eric's face, because amekaa nyuma yake, alafu Eric will leave. But in the African setting, we usually sit in a circle, all right? And there are very few churches. I think the Catholics have really tried to make that a reality, where they try to make their churches to fit into our culture. Churches like Nairobi Baptist Church, they also are like that. They are shaped almost like this. So even the choir, it's almost like a circle. But now they have a new sanctuary, which is worse. It's now like the Anglican. Which is not a good thing. But the concept here is that, especially in the African, we are communal. The other thing about us is that really no one has monopoly of knowledge. So what happens is we share. We kind of do that in terms of I pick from you pick from me. But also the whole concept of that is that we get to know one another. Because when you sit in a circle, you are saying, hey, I want to see you face to face. So one of our priorities is that we be community, that we care for one another, we be family. And one of the ways to do that, obviously, is at a time like this when we meet together, is you get to know someone, and you'll do that in small group where you get to know. So the group leader is going to help us to do that. You share your life, you share a little bit of who you are. At the end, you'll share contacts. But the passage I'll read will guide us in the areas that then we shall also discuss at that particular time. Now, I do respect especially introverts. Introverts are people who want to just keep to yourself. You want to keep your life to yourself, and you don't want to share too much with other people. But whether you are extrovert or you're introvert, we are the family of God. And so as a family of God, we find ways to just encourage one another. And so the group leader will also be sensitive to that, in the sense that there are some people, what they do is they think first and then they talk. Okay? Then there are others who talk and then. So what happens is the group leader has to balance to ensure that he gives enough time to those who think and then they talk, but at the same time they still have to talk, so that you don't have one person monopolizing the whole time, because we don't have a lot of time. We have a very short time that we have this morning. So when we met last year, we grouped this into, we grouped what you mentioned into 5 areas, and we've been praying about it and just looking at it. The first one was faith and spiritual growth. Faith and spiritual growth. That is, many of you are looking forward and talking about how you want to be. You want to grow in your faith and have your spiritual growth. And so we had the area of seeking a closer relationship with God was big. We saw that. Seeking a closer relationship with God, which for me was wonderful. And then trusting in the Lord and aligning life with His will, that is seeking His will. Then living a godly life and stepping into God's calling. Again, for me, that was wonderful, that we are willing to grow in our spiritual life, to walk with God, to step into our calling. And then the second area was family focus, and I think we've seen some of it even shared here. Providing for the family as per biblical principles, raising godly families, and being a spiritual leader at home. This thing of being a spiritual leader at home can sometimes be very confusing for many of us men. Sometimes our wives maybe want us to lead the family in devotion. At that time, you're quite busy and so on and so forth. I'm saying this because my wife keeps telling me that. And I tell her, I'm a pastor in church, you are a pastor at home. Well, endelea. But she says, I have to be there. So that spiritual leader at home has been big for us, and it's something that I've listened to for over a quarter century. So when I say that, I know what I'm talking about. Job will tell you it's a bit longer. Spending quality time and creating memories with the family. For Eric, who is expecting number 2, what is really spending time and creating memories with the family? I was listening to a man who was telling me how he was so, they were quite broke. And it happens when you have young children, you're broke. Am I right? Yeah. So what they would do is they would go to Naivasha to a tent, these tent camps, and watch the kids. Now the kids are all grown and married. Now when they come home and they gather, what they remember is actually those tent camps. They don't remember the eating in 680 hotel and the like, which these guys thought they were now giving them memories by going there. They remember that sleeping out, you're not sure when the hippo will come or not, And these are the memories the kids have most. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't need to be like something that is out there, but just creating memories for and with family. And then service and responsibilities, serving God, the community, and mankind. That is also places in your areas of employment or business, being responsible in all the spheres of life. That was number 3, service and responsibility. And then number 4, what came out was personal development, the mental wellness, the emotional awareness, self-care, and then using God-given talents for His glory, striving for overall growth and impact. And then the 5th one was career and provision, balancing career with godly priorities, seeking prosperity and career success as a means to support family and community. And so those are some of the things that actually came out during a year ago, exactly a year ago, and they are things that we've been praying about. So what I picked out from, after I analyzed all this, what I picked out from was a book in a passage in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. So if you like it, you can say, just put Timothy somewhere and put 222 if you're the type who forgets. So every time you remember 222, you remember, then you just put Timothy. And what Paul tells Timothy is that the things you've heard from me, entrust to reliable men who will be able to teach others. So let me say Brian is my Timothy. Brian, kuja kidogo. So I call Brian, and then I tell Brian, see and hear, all right? And then Brian calls Willie. So what Paul, kuja kidogo. So what Paul is telling Willie is, what Paul is telling Brian is, the things you've heard and seen, and trust to reliable men who will be able to teach others. So the reliable man that you will entrust to, because you're already reliable. So the reliable person you will entrust to is who? Wilson. And Wilson, what are you supposed to do?
I pass it on to another reliable man.
Call another one. Just say, wewe, kama ujui jina. So you pass to. So this
is Robert.
Yeah. So these are 4 people. So Paul, you're seeing, you're watching, and then you are entrusting the things that you had to Wilson. And then Wilson is entrusting to Robert. So those are 4 generations that we are talking about. So some of you may be here, you're saying, hey, me, I don't have children, I don't have family. But God, we have spiritual families. And so this becomes my spiritual family. That's why Paul kept referring to Timothy as Timothy, my son. All right? So please take your seat. Thank you. So that is the kind of thing that Paul has in mind. You're growing yourself, you're growing leaders, and those leaders are growing others. If my thing ends with Brian, then there's something wrong. I've done something that is not Christian-like. But if it ends with Willie, then there is an unfaithfulness somewhere. Either I haven't done a good job, or Brian hasn't done a good job. If it ends with Willie and it continues with Robert, then there is something as well. So it is then a responsibility for us to then ensure that we are thinking generational things. And this comes in terms of, some of you said, seeking closer relationship with God, trusting the Lord and aligning your life with His will, living family focus. When you're thinking of the family as well, you're thinking, what do I need for this generation to another generation to another generation? I lost an auntie. We buried her about a week or so ago. She was 97. And one of the things that struck me about that funeral was the way she's passed the faith and even her wealth and everything, that it continues to be generated to the 4th generation. So that her great-grandchildren could say, the career I am having was because of my great-grandmother, the things she could just tell me. The faith I'm having was because of this. And so even within the family, these are then principles we can inculcate. And as we were sharing with Brian, just laying those kind of foundations, the kind of principles. And even if you don't have a child, or even if you don't have a wife, laying those principles for yourself so that if they ever come, you kind of have a foundation to kind of build generational thinking. That is what leadership is about, in the sense that God has called us as men to be leaders. We don't just think us. We think others. we think beyond, and we think generational in that sense. And then, of course, the whole area of, like we say, serving God, the community, and mankind, all that kind of thing is done one step at a time. Some of the dangers we face is we want to do everything at once, or we want to do so big. But what I'm calling us today is to just take 1, 2, 3, or small steps that we can do. So, what does that mean for us here as men of Karura Community Chapel? And the few that we are here today, the person who draws us all together is Jesus, and is the one we look to. So Paul was not speaking to Timothy as Paul. He was saying, follow me as I follow Christ. So whoever you're following, you have to follow them as they follow. But sometimes as men, we may reach a stage where we are not following Christ. But you continue following Christ. You don't follow this guy because he's like, if you're following a car, you've heard of those stories, especially those of you who go to Western during December, how the roads are so packed, so you see people using vichochoros, like that. So there's this guy who got so impatient, he then saw someone diverting from the main road, and afata kichochoro, and then the guy followed him, thinking he'll find a way out. When he followed the guy reached a place, his gate was open, he entered his gate and went home. And the guy realized, I'm stuck, I have to go back to there. So, unaweza kuwa unapata mtu alafu anatoka kwa barabara na wewe unasema utoke kwa barabara. But the key issue is we are following Christ. So, what was Christ like? When Christ was born, he was just born like a baby. And then we are told he grew up in favor with God and with man and in wisdom and in stature and so on and so forth. But then a time reached when he began to build a team. And this team were just kawaida people. There was nothing really huge about them. They were just normal people that he built. But before he called them, he had a bit time to pray, to think who he wanted, and then he had a program, a process of mentoring this guy in whatever they were doing. Such that a time even came when he would send them out 2 by 2 to do what he wanted them to do. And then after that, practical, you can call them practicals. They come back and they report. And when they report, he now helps them again. So sometimes they would come and say, wait, the demons were fleeing and they were excited. Then Jesus tells them, hey, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice in the fact that your names are written in the book of, In other words, don't rejoice in performance so much, or what you can do as a person, but rejoice in what God can do. Because for our names on what we have done. Because the danger with relying on performance, especially as men, is we fail. And even those we look to fail. And so what do? But now when we learn, when we trust in God, then he's able to hold us firm in that way. So he would send them out, they come back, they have some form of feedback, and then they continue. And then now when he went, of course, the Holy Spirit came and they continued with the work. So he taught them with the understanding that I'm not going to be there. And these are the people now who went into the world, and they were the foundation of the church, the disciples, and they taught the whole church. And they've changed the whole world completely. Completely. And that is our call, men, as leaders, as men, to change the world. But how? By looking to Christ. And as Christ teaches the others teach us, and we teach, and so on and so forth. So today, I want us to think about, because all these things we've mentioned, these things that I mentioned over here, they are really good things. But the way to receive them is through that. It's by giving. That's the way to receive. Because if you don't give, then you don't bless someone. And if you don't bless somebody, then you are not blessed. That is how the Bible works. That's how God works. And so our focus today will be on giving. What can you give? And what do you have that you can give? Moses, a mighty man of God, was very worried. And his worry was that when God called him and gave him a task, felt he had nothing. In fact, he felt that he can't talk. He probably felt, do you want to kick us out? Thank you. He felt that he can't talk. He felt that he's maybe too old. He was 80 years old. He felt that the people they were sending them to are too powerful. He just felt like this thing is impossible. I can't even do it. Then, of course, God had already gotten a plan. He had already brought Joshua. Another man is Gideon. When God called him, he said, hey, it's not just me who is young and small. Even my own clan is young. It's small, you know. We are so weak. We can't even stand. The Philistines, if they see us doing whatever they do, they come and take us. Some of you are here, you are saying, hey, I'm just a student. Others are saying, I don't even have a job. I have nothing. In fact, if people look at me, I wonder how I can even stand before people. But those are the kind of people God calls. And then God tells Moses, what do you have in your hand? What is that in your hand? And so today, our reflection is, as you think of giving, I want you to think, what is in your hand? What has God already given you? Because whatever God has given you, He's given it to you so that you give it, and as you give it, then He blesses you more, and so on and so forth. So you and I are blessed to bless. So as you get into these groups, there are a few things that I want you to reflect on. How many, like for Jesus, he had 12. How many people, maybe 1, 2, 3, whatever, even if it's 2, how many people can you make to be your Timothy this year? How can you locate them? And they don't have to be from this church. And once you locate them, what are some of the things that you need to be able to do? And you just need to look at Jesus, what he did. When John and Andrew first met Jesus, I think it's John the Baptist who had introduced to them and said, this is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And Jesus just told them, come and see where I stay. Whatever it is, whether it's just staying with them, whether it's just being with them, whatever it is. And sometimes you never know what the situation is. As it is, the men, generally, the younger boys in this country, in the world over, I think they probably need more mentorship than we think. They don't have men who stand, like I was talking about the British church. We see them, they see us, but we only see their back. We don't reach out to them. And so what happens is, Brian is standing here, I'm standing here, and we're wondering who will blink first or who will move first. So they are wondering, can I approach this guy? He's bigger than me, he's older than me, and me, I'm wondering, hey, can I approach this Gen Z? Or is he going to throw stones at me? Will he be abducted? And he's thinking, this guy will abduct me, and so on and so forth. So it just causes. So the leadership here is about taking initiative. Just stepping out and saying, look, I'll do this. And when you take that initiative, it may look very foolish, or you may even feel weak like Moses felt, but God is already prepared the way in terms of bringing about Aaron to speak on his behalf. Or in the case of Gideon, he just needed a light. He didn't need all the swords and everything. He just needed those torches and everything that God had. So leadership here is that ability to analyze what God has done and what God is doing, and actually to step forward and be part of it. So what am I asking us to do this year as men? I'm asking us to commit yourself to at least minimum 2 Timothys and think generationally. Paul talks of reliable men who will be able to pass it on to the other. Now, being with younger people, being there is, we have so many issues that sometimes we just need each other And you never know, these are the same young men who will help you now when you need help at some point. Some of them are looking at you, you finished school. How did you even finish school? Right now, we just have kids who've done KCSE and they've just received their results. And some of them are really broken. And the interesting thing about this KCSE, I think for the first time, I suspect, there were more ladies than men. Because always it used to be that the boys were more. Because boys' schools used to be more. But what has happened is, for the last maybe 30, since the times of Moi, the government and many people have so invested in girls, even in girls' schools, that never even used to do well and they were never there. So that there are so many girls' schools now that more girls are now going to school than even boys. But also it could just be a population issue, I'm not sure. But once such a trend begins, it hardly stops. And so you'll begin to see more girls even in the universities, which will mean there'll be more girls in the workplace. There'll be more girls now being bosses of men and so on and so forth. And the boys will be wondering, what is our place? What is leadership when you have a lady over you as a boss and I'm a man and your wife is higher than you in the whatever? How do you even handle that? And so roles will be changing and all those challenges. But the reality is many boys don't have anyone to look to. And so you may be sitting here and thinking, me, I have nothing to offer, I have this. Hey, if you finished Form 2, you have something to offer. If you finished Form 4, these boys need you. If you finish this, if you've maybe been, you're working or you've been in a certain situation, all they need to hear is, once you start working, or once you start a business, or once you start this is what you need and this is how it is done. All right? Some of you are married, some of you are in relationships. Maybe they just wonder, how do we when people start those kind of things? They just need to just sit with you. So sometimes what it needs is just a cup of coffee. It needs just listening. And really listening is usually the best thing. You know, like when we were analyzing some of this, actually there were quite many that you people wrote, and there were quite a lot of things. But it helps you to know where someone is, so that then you are not addressing somebody who is up here, you are addressing them here, or you are addressing someone here and there, elsewhere. So just offering that listening here. It costs. It may be maybe a bit, it has a few, it may cause some discomfort, but that's what we are called to. And that is the way we are blessed as God's people. Under normal circumstances, we want to be comfortable, we just want everything to be done. But this is our calling as leaders, this is our calling as men. If we are able to get from this particular church, the better. If we can't, God has a lot of people all over. It could be some of your family people, relatives from your family. And God could be calling you to just be there for them. The getting to know one another part is very important, because we want to actually work together. The reason I've chosen these small groups, I want a commitment from that group that you'll keep each other accountable to what we are committing ourselves to. The reason for that is, without accountability, nothing happens. Now, some of you may be believers for a long time, others may not actually be believers, or others are just beginning. But we are called to be leaders as men. What is it that you can offer the people that God has given to us? So let's keep each other accountable. Some of you, God may just be calling you to teach a young man to start a business. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Some of you are IT, others are in construction, others are, and all that. So what is it that you have in your hand, like Moses, the thing he had? And with that thing that Moses had, it is the one that God told him, put it on the water opened. And he used it to go and declare to Pharaoh the wonders and the works of God. And God wants to use whatever you have to do that. I hope it's not too scary, but it's not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be scary. So we only have 12 months in this year. 1 month is almost gone. If you have 2 people, you have 3 people. What will you do each month? How will you identify these people? just look at how Jesus did. Then how are you able to listen to them? How are you able to work with them? When you approach them, they will be very scared because some of them are wondering, why is this guy choosing me? But eventually they will be very happy. This is my prayer, that in December or November or October, we shall have a dinner with our Timothys and with our Willies, and hopefully even the Roberts will be there. But even if it's not the Roberts, the Timothys will be there. So this small team, as we are, all the way number 1 to 4, how many shall we be by December in terms of just the people we are mentoring and growing? We shall be, yes. And then next year, if Timothy is faithful and is able to have 2 or 3 faithful men, he'll have 3 Willies or 4 Willies. The growth and discipleship and leadership development is exponential. Not in big ways. You won't be standing on the pulpit to say this is what it is. It will just be in small ways. There are some little things that even young people don't even know how to go about it. Things like finances. Some of them are just finishing. Finishing school. They are getting to, for the first time, they are beginning to interact with money. Some of the things you wish you knew when you finished school. How can you help this young person? And confront them and tell them, look, for you to do this, I wish I had done this. I failed here. I didn't do very well here. What can you do? Little small things that you can take for granted. But don't be afraid. Step out. Step up and reach out. All right? So group 4, you will sit. I don't know whether that is a board or I think no, it's a table tennis thing. Group 4, you'll sit in that corner. Group 1, you'll sit here. Group 3, you'll sit there. Group 2, you'll sit here. All right? Let me do that again. Group 4, there. Group 1, here. Group 3, there. Group 2 here. So choose a leader, then the leader, please take the people through. By the time you finish, you need to have a little bit of a summary of what you've decided, because what we want to do is to encourage one another at the end to see exactly what are some of the things you've decided. Exchange contacts, and then decide how you'll keep one another accountable. That accountability, you don't have to be meeting here to be accountable, but it's probably once a month where you just call one another and ask, hey, how is it, Brian? How is it? How did you manage? What are steps you've taken? Have you prayed about this person? Did you get one? Are you meeting with them? What are you giving to them? What kind of feedback are you receiving? Now, of course, there are some things which are confidential, which you can't share, but it's just that space of accountability. As you do that, you will be growing, so that these things we wrote about last year, all these things we wrote, will actually be a reality, because we will be, as we engage with other people, we'll be asking ourselves, am I seeking a closer relationship with God? And because I'm seeking a closer relationship with God, I can be able to do that.
And so this year we'll be having the Step Up Men's Summit in June, and we want to invite all of you. If you want to be part of this or just want to support us, please reach out to us and just help us as we plan again to gather men together to help us step up in the different areas of our lives.